let's go here. Welcome everybody. Again, it's good to see you all.
Sit right there.
I'll put my glass on so I can see what I'm supposed to read. I'm going to read about 30 pages from this book, so take a little bit. If you put your hands in outside. And the Buddha said, Bhikkhus, when the uninstructed worldling is being contacted by painful feelings, he sorrows, grieves, laments, he weeps, beating his breast and becomes distraught. He feels two feelings, a bodily one and a mental one. Suppose they were to strike a man with a dart, and then they would strike him immediately afterwards with a second dart. So that man would feel a feeling caused by two darts. So too, when the uninstructed worldling is being contacted by a painful feeling, he feels two feelings, a bodily one and a mental one. Being contacted by that same painful feeling, he harbors aversion towards it. When he harbors aversion towards painful feelings, the underlying tendency to aversion towards painful feelings lies behind this. Being contacted by a painful feeling, he seeks delight in sensual pleasure. For what reason? Because the uninstructed worldling does not know of any escape from painful feelings other than sensual pleasure. When he seeks delight in sensual pleasure, the underlying tendency to lust for the pleasant feeling lies behind this. He does not understand it really is the origin and the passing away, the gratification, the danger, and the escape in the case of these feelings. When he does not understand these feelings, the underlying tendency to ignorance in regard to neither painful nor pleasant feelings lies behind this. And then moving on a little bit, it says, Bhikkhus, when the instructed noble disciple is contacted by a painful feeling, he does not sorrow, grieve, or lament. He does not weep, beating his breast, and become distraught. He feels one feeling, a bodily one, not a mental one. Suppose they were to strike a man with a dart, but they would not strike him immediately afterwards with a second dart. So that man would feel a feeling caused by one dart only. So too, when the instructed noble disciple is contacted by a painful feeling, he feels one feeling, a bodily one, not a mental one. If he feels a pleasant feeling, he feels it detached. If he feels a painful feeling, he feels it detached. If he feels neither painful nor pleasant feeling, he feels it detached. This bhikkhus is called the noble disciple, who is detached from birth, aging, and death, who is detached from sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure, and despair, who is detached from suffering, I say. Thus ends the reading. Excuse me, I have a little bit of a cough here today, so I hope I don't get you sick. Excuse me. So, now I think we can all agree that, everybody feels pain and suffering. Pain's part of life. Maybe you're in the midst of a debilitating disease, or you're experiencing a relationship issue that's very hurtful. Maybe someone you love has left your life. Sometimes people you love hurt you with inconsiderate actions, and a natural disaster impacts your life in painful ways. It causes pain. Things that are outside of your control impact your life, and you feel the pain, and life is therefore can be difficult. So there are times when you experience feelings and emotions that cause pain. Maybe the experience of selfishness or greed or anger or jealousy. And as a person who tries to live in a world of loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity, this causes a feeling of not liking ourselves. The feelings of selfishness, anger, jealousy, or greed, whatever, are the first arrow or the first dart. The not liking yourself, that's the second arrow or the dart. And that may be something you can identify and work with. You don't have control over the first arrow, but the second arrow is optional. The second arrow is our reaction to the first arrow. The reason the first arrow hits in this example is because you're human. You have feelings that arise, sometimes without your control, many times without your control. There's nothing and no one at fault when a feeling pops up that runs counter to your best efforts to be a good person. It's the second arrow of self-recrimination that is the suffering you allow or you enable. The understanding that stuff happens and that there is nothing wrong with you and will help you defer the pain of the second arrow, the part of the suffering that may be optional. The Buddha said, in life we cannot always control the first arrow. However, the second arrow is our reaction to the first. The second arrow is optional. You'll hear that a couple more times here. In order for the second arrow to be optional, we have to understand, however, what optional is. We can get so wrapped up in the feelings, perspectives, and the mental formations in the consciousness that we don't see any options. There are always options. The parable of the second arrow is a Buddhist parable about dealing with suffering more skillfully. Dealing with the second arrow takes a lot of work, a lot of self-examination, a lot of understanding. And it takes understanding about what pain is and what suffering is. You get a bad review at your job, and that hurts. Now you start to worry about losing your job, about living without a job. The financial insecurity sets in. Problems at home will increase. You carry the bad review out to the future, which is unknown, but you feel it as known. One antidote might be to think about changing the bad review through some positive actions and then just moving on. Or you lose your job, and that hurts. You feel the hurt, and the hurting is natural. The second arrow hits, and you start to imagine the future without employment, and the what-ifs if you can't find something straight away. You imagine all of the downsides of no employment, and there are downsides. And there are certainly some downsides, but you don't really know the future. You imagine the worst, and living in the moment of those worst, you may not be, these worst may or may not be in your future. Your relationship ends, and you have pain. Then the second arrow hits. I'll be all alone. I'll be unhappy. Love is miserable and hurtful. What is wrong with me that caused this partner to end this relationship? There may be nothing wrong with you. Absolutely nothing wrong with you. Maybe the other person changed. Change happened. It's natural. The hurt, you hurt, and that is natural. But non-attached from the thinking that it's all about you and only you. It's never only about you. The Buddha talked about resistance. You can become obsessed with resistance. You think there must be a reason for the pain and that I am responsible. If you dwell in this state, you can become obsessed with self-blame. Sometimes we do screw up. We hurt somebody. After all, we are human. Acknowledge it. Correct what can be corrected and make a commitment to not repeat the behavior. Then move on. Obsessing over what you did serves no purpose except to add to your suffering. This is in no way saying that you don't take responsibility for your actions. When you're wrong, you're wrong. But obsessing over something without any corrective action prolongs the negative. And I mean that when I say the progressive action or corrective action. We use words like I'm anxious, I'm angry, but change the wording to the anxiety or the anger. You become so attached to the feeling that you think about it obsessively. You're not the anger. Yes, anger is present, but it arises, it stays for a while, and then it dissipates. If the anger were you, it would always be present. The two arrows parable teaches us about the importance of non-attachment. Non-attachment is about loving without losing yourself. It's about maintaining an inner peace regardless of the external circumstances. It's not about coldness. It's not about not caring. The words we use to work with non-attachment may carry different meanings to different people. Non-attachment involves letting go. Accepting the natural, changing, and impermanent nature of life, which may aid in reducing the anxiety and the suffering. The term non-attachment is a little different than detachment, and sometime in the reading it would say detachment, but I was going to use non-attachment because in our English language, detachment has more of a negative connotation. Kind of brings with it a coldness or a not caring, an aloofness or an indifference. Detachment may mean withdrawal, but non-attachment does not imply apathy or indifference, but a freedom from passion. An attachment that is necessary if actions are not to become biased or partial. Non-attachment should bring your focus to the here and the now. You see things arise, stay for a while, then they decay or cease to be. This is for everything in the universe. So the thinking that non-attachment is aloof, indifferent, or cold is simply not so. In fact, with the focus that we have on our four immeasurables, the loving kindness, the compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity, you are developing the opposite of disinterest or aloofness. But there is something you have to bring into this equation, and that something is impermanence. You have to deal and understand impermanence. The understanding that everything is in a constant state of flux, arising, staying, passing away. Clinging to something that is constantly changing is going to lead to suffering. Thinking something is permanent leads to suffering. Letting go is not our natural tendency, and it takes some time to be able to embody the fact of impermanence. Love deeply. Develop compassion for your world. Take joy in the success of others, and be impartial. Then understand that letting go means something has ceased. It goes against the grain because when you love something, you want it to be close. You want to hold on to it. You want to be attached. So how do you develop non-attachment? First, you got to be aware of it. You're constantly aware of it. Keep it in your awareness, in the here and the now. Letting go is stopping the clinging to outcomes over which you have no control. It is allowing life to flow and accepting what is not under your control. Letting go brings with it an impartiality and a non-judgment. Letting go is letting be. And as the Beatles said, there will be an answer, let it be. It's just a very trivial thing, but I thought I'd bring it up because I know I'm getting better at letting go of some things. And one of those reasons is I don't weep openly anymore when Michigan State loses to Michigan. I let it go. It's not that big a deal. The suffering has been reduced since when I was at Michigan State, which a few years back. You have to work at developing the insight of letting go. You don't just decide to do it, although a decision is required. It can be complicated because we are complicated beings. If it were easy, our entire world would look remarkably different, and it would look so different we wouldn't probably even recognize it. Practice the state of letting go, or leaving things alone. You work on this through your practice, through your meditation. You can't learn to let go by wishing it would go away, by wishing it were different. You can't just think about letting go, you have to learn to experience the letting go. Letting go goes beyond thinking. You have to practice by contemplating the experience of letting go. In your practice, there may be a feeling of clarity that arises about letting go. This is where the letting go is embodied. In the clarity or the awareness of letting go, if it remains elusive, keep it in the practice. Keep trying. Practice letting it go for just right now. While I'm practicing, and just now while I'm practicing, I'm going to practice just letting go for this period of practice. Maybe I'll slide back a bit, but just during this practice, I'm letting go. Let go of some of the small things first, such as Michigan State. Take care of the small things, and the big things will take care of themselves.